one of my favorite people in the whole entire human world is Doug Crowe. And Doug's with us today. Doug's one of the great marketing minds of our time. He's connected with 25,000 people on LinkedIn organically. He also just has access to everything that's going on and sort of his finger on the pulse of everything that's happening, including all the exciting new things that are happening with AI, and has figured out ways to use AI to enhance what we're doing and not be something it's scary.
Everyone's wanting attention, right? And going back to the AI thing, because AI is so prolific now, and there's more and more and more content, there's a math problem no one's really talking about that I do, and that is this. The explosion of content, like 550 million posts a day, 4.5 million podcasts. Last time I checked, Sarah, I still only had 8 hours a day to consume this stuff. And I'm going to give everybody my workflow checklist, everything that I'm doing. They get it all for free. The thing we do when we help each other out is we will like and share and intelligently comment on each other's posts. This is the one that people miss when I see the AI bots try to replicate a comment on LinkedIn. Yeah. It's dumb. No. What I do is I manually go in, I'll read someone's actual post, and I got a 3-step formula. I like it, and I read it, and I intelligently comment on it, and I end with a question. That's 4 steps. But the most important thing, if you like it,
tell me about that. Yeah,
give you a little bit of an endorphin hit. Ooh, somebody liked my post. Then when I read it, I digest it and go, I learned this today from your post. Thank you for teaching me this. And this is the most important part. So that gives them a compliment, second endorphin hit. At the end of my comment, I always end with an intelligent question, not, hey, I say, listen, I learned this about that. How would what I learned apply to my industry over here? Because I'm not commenting on my own industry. I'm commenting on other people's stuff. How would it apply to over here? Now watch what happens. Someone says, they gave me attention. They like me. They read it. I can see they actually read it. And they're making me think with an intelligent question. Now, if somebody asks you a question, if they read their own stuff, they're going to answer it. And now you've got engagement. Authentic, and folks, go up the chain. I mean, I've connected with the CEO of the American Heart Association, celebrities, other people, just by not asking for any business. I'm just reading it. Interesting. How would it just get a little engagement going? So it's manual. It takes time. I'm sorry, but human beings.
It's a little bit of time, but a little bit of time each day adds up so much. I mean, it's, you do 2 or 3 of those a day or 5 of those a day. It's thousands by the end of the year. But I mean, as the great Jim Rohn, as he used to say, if let's say that's, 5,000 over the year or something like that you commented on, if you get to December 31st at midnight, go, here, let me do 5,000 of them. That's going to be a little daunting, but 5 a day, you can find 5 a day, or you can find somebody on your team that can ping people that seem to have like-minded values. That's part of it. It's not just finding who's the fanciest person on the internet. It's finding people that you really do value what they value, and they value what you value, and they're interesting and smart, and somebody you would want to spend time with. So I think that's brilliant. I add to that formula: never start with I and never start with thank you, because it's not about them. So start with, your post was blah, 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 blah. And then some sort of compliment about it, because that's even more of an endorphin hit. I think you said that as well. And then I love that you then said, ask a question or something that gets some engagement. And again, from a psychological standpoint, that's an open loop that people have to, feel like they either need to know the answer to, or want to know the answer to, or want to, it's not a closed loop. So it's your formula is brilliant. The fact that you get an endorphin hit because you made somebody's day 5 times a day or 2 times a day or whatever.
When you ask a good question, sometimes the author responds. Most of the time the author responds, but quite often the other commenters will also respond. So that's one tactic that we're employing. But the cohort we're doing is going to have a whole workflow, a lot of things you can do there. There is some content you actually do put out for your build in public thing. And people love the build in public. Like Kardashians meet Elon Musk. Imagine if Elon did a video or a post every day about his challenges, what he was doing, why he was doing it, competitors. It's called build in public. And it's basically a reality show for your business.
Build in public.
VIP. So that's part of the plan that we're putting together for this. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, that's a wonderful idea. So building in public, these are the things that are really going on. And,
Yeah.
and I think we do love secret stuff behind this, what's going on
Mhm.
behind the curtain, what's
Yeah.
happening, how are they actually doing it?
Right.
Even
Right.
though some of the things that a company of a huge size might not apply to us, some of it has to. And it is just
Oh,
even if it doesn't, it's just so
yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
that and I think we as humans we just are obsessed with finding out secret stuff. It doesn't even have to be interesting secret stuff. That's why
Right.
we all like to find out things. And
Yeah.
again, what I always say to people, if you have secret stuff, if you know things that somebody else don't, it
Mhm.
doesn't, something
Yeah.
somebody else doesn't know,
Yeah.
that's a great secret somebody might really appreciate.
One of the most powerful marketing hooks in the world is curiosity. I'm sorry. I mean, take a look at
Yes,
Paul
yes.
Harvey. I got to interview
Yeah.
him at college when I was there.
No, if
Yeah.
you don't know
It
who he
was,
was, he was one of the biggest voices in radio for
yeah.
decades. He had this big, booming, fabulous voice,
Yeah.
and his stories were
Stories were
legendary.
great. And he tell a
Go
story. You don't
listen to
know
him
who
on
it was
YouTube.
until the very end. And
Oh, he
that's the
could tell
rest
a
of the story.
story.
But the curiosity, using curiosity
Yeah,
in your marketing or in your branding and
yeah,
positioning, it's always helpful because it makes the other
yeah,
person think. They're not just going to scroll past. They think, oh, I got to think about that.
yeah.
Good question.
I am so incredibly honored to have you as a part of the Inspiring Victory tribe at the Inspiring Victory Show. Please do us a favor. We really need your help. Please like, subscribe, share, write a comment. It makes a huge difference with how many people we can reach here at the Inspiring Victory Show, and it makes a big difference to me personally. I want to make sure that we're providing content to as many people as we possibly can so they can grow and succeed. So we'd love to have you continue your membership here at the Inspiring Victory Show. It's free. Helping us out costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference in how many people we can help. So double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And thank you so much for being a part of this extraordinary community. Thank you.
Even in leadership, we have one of our favorite clients has a book coming out. Kim Adele Randall. She's in England. I know you've heard of her, but she did a really, really good TEDx talk. It was really, really lovely. But she has a book coming out called The Curious Leader, and it's about how the power of curiosity with your clients, your potential clients, and with the people who work for you. Most leaders are just missing so much of the potential that's right
Yeah.
in front of them that works,
Yeah.
people that work for them or the clients or potential customers that they could have. Oh, I love that. Curiosity. What a great point. Yeah, when she first came up with it, I didn't quite
Yeah.
get it. And then but the more I realized how we are in this age of AI where people, the one thing you can still count on from humans is curiosity. And
Yeah.
it is a superpower that I didn't realize.
I can talk about curiosity for a couple minutes if you don't mind. Because
Sure. No, I love that. Yeah.
I did a frame for a book. I haven't written the book, but I kept thinking about not just in business, but in relationships and even society. Curiosity would always benefit. If you have a disagreement with somebody, I'll give you a personal example, if that's okay.
Of
Um,
course.
there's a lot of political divide in the United States, and people are like, they're angry about left and
Yeah.
right, and I've seen that in my own life. I have friends who have different views, which is great, but I've caught myself judging their statements when I disagreed internally. I wouldn't say it externally. I'm
Right.
like, wow. And because of that, I wasn't learning anything about them. There was no relationship being built. But when you're genuinely curious about the other person and you
Mhm.
ask questions like Daryl Davis, black man who called up the Ku Klux Klan, said, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? Whole great story there.
I love that story. Yeah.
Yeah, because
They make it into a movie too, I think. It's
yeah, he
brilliant.
should.
Yeah.
I met him
And
at
they
a
think that,
conference. He's a great guy.
oh, I'd love
Anyway,
to meet him.
when you're curious about the other person and
Hmm.
genuine about it and set your beliefs aside, not your values. This is from Adam Grant, but you set your beliefs aside and
Oh.
you're genuinely curious about someone, magical things happen. My relationship with my family improves. My relationship with an adversary would dissolve. My business goes up because I'm more curious about my customer, how I can serve them, not me. And my book title, maybe you'll help me with this. It was The Curiosity Cures, which was Better Sex, More Money, and World Peace. was the subtitle because it could,
That would sell. I'm not sure to whom or if it's your market, but who
it was
wouldn't
sort of
buy
broad
that?
based, right? It wasn't really
A
a niche
very,
book.
very broad base of people. Yeah, I
I
see.
believe curiosity
Okay.
could cure all those things. You could have a better relationship,
No, I think you're
you
right.
have world
I think you're
peace,
right.
you can make more money if you're just curious about it. So,
And I think it goes back to all we really want is someone who believes in us, even if it's not belief yet.
yeah,
Curiosity leads to belief. At least if
yeah,
you're curious, it means you care a little, which is
yeah.
on the way to believing in them, or at least
Genuine
honoring
was
those.
the adjective I have to use. Genuine
What?
curiosity, not genuine
Genuine, not
curiosity.
fake. Yeah, not fake. Yeah,
Yeah.
because people can sniff that out. I always say that about compliments too. I mean,
Mhm.
again, that's why I say, if you're commenting on somebody's stuff online, get your
Yes.
staff to find you some cool people that they know you
Mm,
well enough and they know what your
right.
criteria are to say, hey, this is somebody you should be commenting on because they're
Mhm.
really great. Or here's what they've been writing. Here's what here's some suggestions of things we think you
Yeah.
could interact with them
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But make it a genuine compliment. Make it be genuinely
Yeah.
curious. I had this great client years ago, and he taught me something that I never forgot. It was before I got married, and he had a whole string all over the country of therapy centers,
Mm.
and they did every kind of therapy you could imagine. But I
Mhm.
did one of the things that he had started on when he started was in working with couples. And
Mm.
so he was really a specialist in that. And he said more marriages break up because the people are too busy being angry and wanting to give their own point of view
Mm.
to go ahead and be curious about them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he said, prime example for him was he had a couple that came in and the woman said, I want a divorce. The
Mm.
first sentence out of her mouth, like, why are you
Wow.
here? I want a divorce. And the
Wow.
man, her husband, was just crestfallen. And so he, as a therapist, said, tell me why you want a divorce. And she said, my father was dying. And this man was with me in the hospital. And when he did finally pass away, he said, would you like to go get some dinner? I mean, that's the most
Yeah.
thoughtless, inconsiderate thing. What on earth was wrong with him? How could I be thinking about food? Why would he say such a thing? That's it. I want a divorce. And then he said, okay, well, let's get curious about what your partner was thinking when he said that. And he turns to the man and he says to the man, why did you say that? And so Fred says, well, in my family, when things are hard, you show them that you love them by taking them out for the best meal, their favorite meal, and you listen the whole time and you don't say a word. You just let them
Yep.
share and vent and talk about everything, and you make it the best it could possibly be in a bad situation.
Wow. Brilliant.
And she looked over and burst into tears, and he said, do you still want a divorce? And she said, no.
There you go. Questions cure everything, right? It's
Doesn't
like,
care
God,
everything,
that's a good question.
but there are times where you're having some sort of conflict with
Right.
a vendor or whether this or
Mhm.
whether that. And how could they? What are they? And then you find, invariably I find out they had a really good intention, and I'm being the jerk thinking that they're doing something terrible. I mean,
It's
99% of the time, I'm all up in arms. How
yeah.
could they do that? And then like, well, I could do it the other way, but it would have cost you 5 times as much. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, never mind.
Yeah.
You're
Not
glad you're
I get cut,
curious. Yeah.
9 times out of 10 when I get cut off in traffic or someone does something rude, I
Yeah.
always say to myself, "Oh, their wife's having a baby at the hospital. They're probably in a hurry." I try to give them the grace of maybe they
Oh
got a reason to be a
yeah.
jerk.
Yeah. Well, there's the famous story. I got to speak in South America with Stephen
Yeah.
Covey. We're both going to talk about all the cool people we know now,
Yeah.
right? It's like, you know more cool people than I do, I think.
No,
This
no,
is a
no, no.
this is a pretty good story. So I'm
Oh,
there. There's 10,000 people. I got Stephen Covey, and we're
yeah.
having this conversation. And he mentioned something in his book, and somebody else mentioned something in the book. And one of the things, the famous stories, was the guy on the train, which
Yeah,
I
sorry.
remember I read that, but it hadn't stuck. So he
Hmm.
reminded me of it, and he said
Yeah.
it was a real thing that happened to him. He was on the
Hmm.
train, and
Wow.
it was a real thing. Kids were acting up, all this stuff was happening, everything, kids were yelling and screaming and throwing things. And, there he was on the train, thinking, oh, why is he not controlling these children? What's wrong with this?
Yep.
And then he said, I'm so, for those who have not read the book, I'm so sorry. Their mother just died and they're really having some feelings about it. And it's amazing what
Right.
reframing can do. And ultimately, also, anger doesn't do you any good. Somebody said it's like drinking poison and expecting the other guy to die. But it's also when you are all riled up in that way, rather than finding that grace that you do when they cut you off or they do that, or you get curious, it only harms you, especially if the person really is. I mean, if the person really is a sociopath and you're up, ruminating on it at 2 o'clock in the morning about what a jerk they were, they're sleeping like a baby. It's not hurting them that you're all mad at them. So it has shifted my perspective. But I have realized the Benjamin Franklin line of, I could be wrong, but I believe this is going on. Because here's what I found out when I'm a little ticked off and I say, I could be wrong, but I believe this was supposed to go like this. And 99 times out of 100, they come back and they go, well, actually, it's this and this. And I go, and I really was wrong. I really was wrong. I'm like, oh man, I love to be right. But most of the time you're not. But that's part of that. How do we do this with grace? But this is back to having relationships with real people, being kind to real people. In an age of AI where we are spending so little time with actual humans, humans need that. We crave that. The worst thing we can do to a person is put them in solitary confinement. That's the worst thing we can do. That's the worst torture you could possibly give to people. And yet we have all of us that were kind of doing that during the pandemic and still continued that pattern. And so it's interesting that even if it is just on Zoom, when we connect with real humans in a human way and are curious and do care, that builds relationships, that builds business connections that are unbreakable. And to have, I'd rather have 10 of those that lead to 10 more that they refer you to, because like attracts like, and then they get you even more great people, which leads you to 100 to 1,000, then have, people will say to me, I had one client say, we want to have, we only have 1 million followers. We want to have 3 million. And I was like, why? Why? Do you want 3 million jerks, or do you want, so it's really, again, it always goes back to that. What do you want this thing to do? Is it just an ego thing?
Right. Yes. That's what people ask you about the bestseller stuff. You and I both know very intimately about, New York Times bestseller, Amazon, whatever. And I tell my clients,
we both got lots of them.
Yeah. I said, okay, so let me ask you a question. Would you rather impact 10,000 lives or be a New York Times bestseller? And however they answer tells me what the motivation really is. Okay, if it's to make an impact or is it for yourself? Nothing wrong with it. That's what you want. As long as you're upfront about it, then you're going to go for the vanity metrics versus the impact metrics. It's up to you. You can do both, but that's a much bigger investment, of course.
It's doable, but it's a marketing challenge. We have ways to do that.
We both have several.
We both have a bunch that have been on New York Times bestseller. One sort of accidentally got there, and that's extremely rare. And the 77 now that have been, on the New York Times bestseller, Amazon bestseller, and USA Today bestseller, Wall Street Journal bestseller. But again, what do you want this to do for you is the most important question. What do you want it to do for you? They
mix up leading and lagging indicators, right? A leading indicator is your activity. Hey, I did so many sales calls today. A lagging indicator is, I made some money. So with the vanity metrics of likes, shares, your bestseller stuff, I've seen on TV, that's all lagging indicators. And so many people reverse it. They put that up front. And I'm guilty of helping my clients. I want to be a bestseller. I'm like, you realize you'd be a bestseller for like a day, right?
Yeah, right. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's doable, and we guarantee if somebody does do a book with us or a book with you, or we're partnering on that, they'll get that bestseller status. That is something that they want, and that's achievable.
But it's a huge difference between doing it
leading
or lagging.
Yeah, well, that's a brilliant way that is a really brilliant way of looking at it, though. Right. I do love that.
We used to talk about that a lot. And then my wife said, Doug, it's those are kind of fake, right? I'm like, they're not fake, they're real. Yeah, but they're kind of pushed all within the algorithm to work that day or that week. Like, I goes, why don't we just talk about the impact instead? I'm like, thank you, honey. I think you're right. We'll just we still do both.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a nice thing. It's a nice thing to have because it does look cool, and it from a marketing standpoint, it has certain advantages to have it maybe an Amazon bestseller or to guarantee that for them.
Right.
But what I always say to people is, I'd rather see your book in the hands of 100 or 1,000,
Yeah.
say, CEOs with the power to give you $2 million
Uh-huh.
in business
Right.
than see it with millions and no
Right.
one's giving you business. I remember I had this one client, and she came to me and she said, "Don't tell anyone." I won't say who she was, obviously, but don't tell anyone. It's a big secret. But she had 8 million followers on Instagram and not one bit of business, not one client.
That's a huge opportunity there. Big, I mean, that's an easy fix,
We,
right?
we had to we had to fix it and leverage it and all that kind of stuff. But
My
what it
gosh.
tells you is, again, is that one doesn't necessarily mean the other. You
No,
better
no.
have the right goal. If the goal is, I
Right.
want 12 clients this year or 1,000
Hmm.
customers or whatever that is,
Right.
go for that, and then backtrack to, will this help you get there? But if you're
Right.
going for the wrong goal, like you said, leading and lagging, the indicators, that was a really
Right.
brilliant way
Yeah. That's
of
the same
putting
thing I
that.
feel about those
So
people who,
smart.
no disrespect to my friends who do this. If you're listening, I'm sorry, but anybody talks about being
Sure.
on the New York Times billboard, I just roll my eyes and laugh. I'm like, you're going to pay money to be on a New York Times billboard for a few minutes? When was the last time you bought something off a billboard? Who
When's the
the
last time you walked
heck,
through the center of New York City to look
who the
for it?
heck cares
Anyway,
if you're on a billboard?
and
You
real
don't
New
get any
Yorkers,
business from
here's what
that?
real New Yorkers do. They
Yeah,
want,
right?
like, I lived there for years. I know.
It's an
We all look
ego
like this.
vanity metric. I don't care. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
for it. You
yeah,
like it. Okay.
yeah. And if
Sorry.
that's it, like, I think it's lovely that you said, if that really is what it is for them,
Yeah,
then that's okay. Let them
that's right.
do that. They don't tend to be our clients, though, because we tend to want to work with people that do want to grow
Yeah,
their business. They want to make an impact on their clients and their
right.
customers,
Hmm.
and they want to have a legacy, and they want to do some real good, change the world, in a really good way.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. Oh, you're always so smart. I just love talking to you. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
And as always, I adore you and your family, and your wife is the best cook I've heard
She
of
is. She is.
in years.
We'll deliver some lumpia in Europe there pretty soon for you, Sarah. That'll be good.
Oh,
Yeah.
please do those
Yeah.
spring rolls. Oh, now you're making me hungry. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much. If you would like to go ahead and join us, my team is going to be at the program on. Do we have a date for that one?
I'll send you a link and
LinkedIn.
registration for all that stuff. Yeah. Come and join that one. It'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like that's a really valuable one, and it'd be
Right.
very, very well. Anything you do is always going to be valuable. So, thank you for being on the show, Doug. We all adore you over here at the Victory Company, and thank you for being a part of the Inspiring Victory Show. Double your business, double your impact, change the world. Go make it happen. Thank you very much for being a part of the tribe, and write a great comment, say something nice about Doug, and come see his program. I will be there, and so will my team and his. Thanks so much, and make it a great day. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Marites Bott of Bott and Associates. I'm so honored to get to be with our wonderful sponsor for the Inspiring Victory Show. And I want to make sure you know a little bit more about her and about what they do, because I think it'd be really helpful for all of us as business people and just in our personal lives. Marites does a lot of speaking, as many of you probably know, but I love one of the speeches that she's famous for, which is A Generous Legacy, the Power of Future-Proofing Your Business and your personal life. And that's really what you are all about. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you. And can you give us an example of somebody who's come to you and how you were able to help them that might be able to help all of us as we navigate our financial planning as well as our estate planning for business and for personal?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it. We do a lot of estate planning, obviously, as well as the financial planning for our clients. And a story that I think is a great way to showcase what we do is this wonderful couple that we met back in, I want to say 2015. They came in for a consultation. So they are certainly a wonderful couple, blended family. So second marriage for both of them. He has children and she does not. Basically, they were saying to me, Marites, I really want my estate plan to be secure. I want it to be ironclad so it goes to the right people. Particularly the wife was concerned that This money goes to her charities, which she was very, very active in and volunteers quite a bit. She puts her hard-earned money with them. And she also wants to make sure her husband is taken care of as well. So she wanted to do both objectives at the same time. We were like, of course we can help you with that. We want to make sure that we write everything down and just like you said, make it ironclad so that there's no contest. There's nobody trying to get to the money inappropriately. Right. So we created a wonderful estate plan for them. So that was 2015. Now, sadly, she unexpectedly passed a few years later. And her surviving spouse came to us and he really needed help. He was so, of course, distraught and super, super sad. But he was also very concerned about the financial pieces. He wasn't that familiar with financial instruments. There was 13, 14, 15 accounts that she had. And of course, he was like, I'm confused. What do I do with all of this? So we said, okay, we're going to take care of you. We got this. And we were able to really take a hold of all those instruments and all those accounts. And on our financial side of our business, we were able to consolidate them, invest it in very prudent investments and make sure it's easy for him to manage. So we were able to do that within 3 to 6 months. His late wife's wishes of him being able to live on that money and then eventually at his death give it to her charities is exactly what's going to happen. So wonderful to be able to plan it properly, give her peace of mind. A few years later, we're honoring 100% of her wishes. This money is not going to go to anybody inappropriately. And her beneficiaries, her charities, are going to be so happy to be able to get this money upon his death because he is still able to live on that income. So I love those stories because to me, we work so hard. We sacrifice daily, right? We work so hard and we want to be able to take our money and be able to give it to people that we love and charities that we believe in.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I always enjoy spending time with you. And yeah, you're one of the people I always find so much value in talking to. You're just walking integrity and you're a good soul. And you help people. You help people. So thank you for being on the show again and for sharing with us and for always doing such a great job for everybody. And now that you're able to do even more and be more of a one-stop shop to help people with all these different issues, I think your company and you are even more valuable. Thank you so much. Always lovely to see you. Marites Bott and Associates. If it's something that you need, be sure and contact Marites right away. Thank you.